What's happening, everybody? This is Gayuka Musa, also known as Coach G, and I'd like to welcome you to this week's episode of The Friday Fix. Now, today's episode is all about perfection, specifically how striving for perfection in your relationship won't make it any better. So, let me know if you're familiar with anything like this. Maybe you know someone who thinks this way. They're looking for the perfect guy or the perfect girl, or they're trying to build the perfect life. There's this puzzle board and they're assembling all these pieces and trying to get them in the correct place so that when you put it together, it equals the perfect life. Or maybe they're in a relationship with someone, somebody that they love. The only thing is they've got potential, so here's this person you love and you care about, and you're thinking, if I could just pick them up and move them here, then all of a sudden everything would be perfect. Does any of that sound familiar? You know anybody who might think like that? Now, there's all kinds of stuff written, all kinds of videos and websites and different things that talk about, not expecting your partner to be perfect. But I want to take perfectionism in relationships to a slightly different level and think about it like this, that not only will perfectionism not make your relationship better, but it can actually make it a lot worse. And the reason for that is because perfectionism represents you being inauthentic. Perfectionism is inauthenticity. Ultimately, you can't be yourself. You're not completely vulnerable. Your partner is with you, but they're not really with the real you. It's close, but it's not all the way there. And ultimately, that leads to the two of you missing opportunities to really connect as authentic human beings. I mean, this is so... What? What Did you hear that? All right, I got you. So check it out. That siren was an indicator that we just experienced a WTF moment. WTF stands for what's the fear? So check it out. You ever been watching a movie, maybe it's like one of those crime movies, there's this big, huge crime in the movie, got all these detectives trying to solve it, and they're following the clues, they're interviewing people, they're accusing the wrong person of being the person you already know is too early in the movie, they can't be the one that did it. And then ultimately they get to a place where they're kind of stuck and they just can't go further, and then one of the detectives has this epiphany and says, follow the money. And ultimately they follow the paper trail. They end up, figuring out who the big wig is at the top of the tower and is calling all the shots, is making all the decision, and ultimately who perpetrated the whole crime, So we're going to follow that same tactic. We're going to follow the fear. And we're going to discover what the fear is that's at the root of perfectionism. And it's simple. Perfectionism is really born out of wanting to avoid criticism, wanting to be beyond criticism, such that criticism is just not even a possibility. And the reason for that is because criticism, rejection, shame, all of those things are experienced as pain in our bodies. There's a place in your brain called the anterior cingulate cortex. And this place in your brain processes pain associated with rejection, with criticism, with shame, but it also processes pain associated with physical injury. So as far as your brain is concerned, it doesn't know the difference between rejection and a broken bone, between criticism and falling off your bike or whatever. It can't tell the difference. To your brain, it's all pain, and it don't want any more of that. So ultimately, you develop these protective mechanisms to avoid future pain because it didn't like when it happened the first time. And that's where perfection comes in. Perfectionism is a type of mechanism to be beyond criticism, to avoid the pain that's associated with being criticized, with being shamed or rejected. Now, let me tell you a little secret, because the thing is, when someone shames you, when they criticize you, the feeling that you're ultimately left with is not feeling good enough. And here, come in a little closer. I got a secret to tell you. Come a little closer. It's not true. It's not true that you're not good enough. It's just not. When I think about fear, I remember learning a long time ago to think of the word fear as an acronym. FEAR, false evidence appearing real. And the false evidence is someone else's opinion that you're not good enough, when there's a simple truth that proves that you're good enough. And the simple truth is this: you're still here. You're still alive. You're still breathing. You're still kicking. You're still doing whatever it is you do each and every day. And that in and of itself is proof that you're good enough, that you're worthy of being here and doing you. So for this week's fix, we're going to focus on 2 things that you can do to limit perfection, to kind of get rid of it in your relationship so that you don't start to have these kinds of experiences where you're shaming or criticizing or blaming your partner. So for the first fix, I want you to let go of the idea and maybe start to recognize the fact that you may have a automated pattern of using perfectionism as kind of one of the founding tenets of your relationship. Like we talked about earlier in the video, you may be in an automated way trying to put all the pieces in that puzzle to build this perfect life. And your perfectionism will ultimately start with criticism, and then your partner might feel some pain, and then they're going to have to deal with the fear of feeling that pain in the future. So they're going to have to develop a mechanism like inauthenticity, perfectionism, to avoid that. And it's just a cycle that starts, and you start to project that cycle onto each other. So instead, what I want you to do is I want you to focus on excellence. Focus on the quality in which you communicate how much you care about your partner. Focus on avoiding using words and phrases that communicate blame or criticism or shame. Now, for the second part of our fix, I want you to accept your humanity. Realize that you're a human being, and there's something beautiful about that. All throughout your life, you've learned these different lessons. You've had these different experiences. You've had failures. You've had mistakes. You've had moments where you had to learn how to do something that you didn't know how to do. And at some point in time, you sucked at it. You were just terrible. And then later, you were pretty good, or maybe you were really good, or maybe you were a master at it. But whatever the case may be, there was growth. There was progress. And that's ultimately what it means to be a human. And I don't want you to cheat yourself out of your birthright. When you start to adopt the posture of inauthenticity, you're really cheating yourself out of your humanity. You're really preventing yourself from experiencing this unique and unpredictable and just fantastic voyage. So what I want you to do for the second part of the fix is I want you to utilize this affirmation. And I want you to say it to yourself 5 times when you first wake up, and I want you to say it 5 times right before you go to bed. And the affirmation is this: I am perfectly human. So like I said, say it 5 times right after you wake up and 5 times just before going to bed. And I want you to start that this weekend. So I'll leave you with this quote from the poet Hafiz. And he said, "Fear is the cheapest room in the house. I'd like to see you living in better conditions. And I want to see your relationship in your life in better conditions. I want you to not leverage perfectionism as some means to bettering your relationship, but realize that it's the thing that might be destroying it the most." That's it for this week's episode. Until next week, free your mind so your life will follow. Take care of each other, all right?